Welcome back to AM Northwest. In honor of Veterans Day, the new film, Fighting Spirit, A Combat Chaplain's Journey, pays tribute to the unsung heroes of the U.S. military.
What you see time and time again is chaplains are getting out there to risk their lives to care for those who need us the most.
Our chaplains are non-combatants. They go into a battle space without a weapon of any sort. You have to be fearless to do that.
We welcome to AM Northwest executive producer of Fighting Spirit, Rich Hull, and retired U.S. Army chaplain, Jeff Struecker. Good to have you both with us. Let me start with you, Rich. Why this topic was important to you?
Well, it's been a 4-year journey for me. I knew nothing about combat chaplains. I didn't know that it existed as a profession. It's obviously far more than a profession. You don't do this job for a paycheck. You do it for some bigger calling. And so I had been aware of Jeff Struecker's story from the movie Black Hawk Down. And then I reached out to my friend Chris Pratt and I said, I think there's some stories here that need to be told. And everybody else I reached out to just kept saying yes and yes and yes. And the thing took on a life of its own. And of course, now that journey ends for all of us as audiences can see the movie only in theaters for Veterans Day.
Yes, and Jeff, I'm curious, what made you sign up for the Army in the first place? And you became a Ranger, right?
Well, I wanted to serve my country, just like all of these great men and women that are currently serving. But I had a very deep faith, and my faith made a big difference on the battlefield. And I had this moment, this calling, as Rich just described, where I felt like I wanted to serve the soul of America's warriors. And that caused me to spend the last part of my military career as a chaplain in Iraq and Afghanistan.
Were there times when you were serving, before you became a chaplain, you thought to yourself, I really need some help here, and a chaplain would have helped me through this situation?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I don't know anybody who's been in the military who hasn't had a moment or so where they needed some support and there was a chaplain within arm's reach to be able to ask some questions, to serve them, to minister to them.
What I thought was interesting, too, is that it's all religions or no religion. Rich?
Yeah. I'll start. I think anytime somebody goes on the battlefield, they have a belief in something. And when chaplains go to the battlefield, although they go as a specific faith, when the bullets start flying, it really just becomes a guy or a gal serving a guy or a gal who's serving our country.
I thought, Rich, what was...
For me, that was what's so intriguing about it is these people come from a particular faith, but when you're out there, you're dealing with soldiers of all faiths and no faiths. And, you know, chaplains were started by George Washington. So they've been in every single battle that the United States has had, and yet most people just don't know their stories. And so I think it's a real opportunity for people of faith to go out and live their faith every single day.
Also, there's a line in the film that in the documentary I find fascinating. It's you're not preparing them for the enemy, you're not preparing them to meet the enemy, preparing them to meet eternity.
Yeah, and I think that's the ultimate role of the military chaplain. Of course, the enemy is the immediate challenge in front of you, but the ultimate challenge is how they live this life and how they prepare for the next life to come.
And Rich, I want to ask you this. So the journey is searching for the remains of a prisoner of war and Army combat chaplain, Emil Capone, is that right? And tell us about him and what he did for the military.
Well, it's really a lot of people's journeys. I think even as audience members, we go on a particular journey when we see this movie.
Yeah.
And so we were halfway through the production of the movie and never really intended to tell Father Emil Capone's story. But his remains were identified 70 years after he had died in a prisoner of war camp in Korea. The Army and the Catholic Church brought them back to the U.S. They decided that they would bury him in his hometown of Wichita, Kansas. And we decided that we would send a camera crew to shoot this. And so we, in fact, sent my co-director, Justin Roberts, who's a former Army combat chaplain himself. And he ended up going on his own journey. When he arrived there, he thought no one would show up. And it turned out to close down the entire town of Wichita, Kansas to celebrate not just this one chaplain, but all combat chaplains. And so with a documentary, you make a plan at the beginning, and the only thing you know for sure is that the plan's going to be wrong. And in this case, the plan was wrong for us. We didn't intend to tell this story, but it really became the heartbeat of the film once we figured out a way to integrate it.
And I would think, too, that Garland White, the first black chaplain during the Civil War, his story is amazing that you tell, too. So, Jeff, can you touch on his impact?
Yeah, of course. I mean, you have some incredible Americans that most people don't even know their name. And then you have guys like Garland White who are in the middle of forging the future of our country. And they're doing it with this very profound faith. And I'm glad that people like him, Chaplain Capon, the 4 chaplains that went down saving the lives of their service members, I'm glad that those stories got told.
Okay, Rich, what does this documentary mean to you? Because it really is one of those things that I don't think watching it, thought to myself one thing about a chaplain and realize now they make such a big difference to the morale of the troops out there. What do you want viewers to come away with from watching this documentary?
I think that there's a sense in the film that one person can really make a difference. And so as we go to theaters to see the movie to celebrate Veterans Day and look for other ways to celebrate veterans on Veterans Day, I think the call to action with audiences is to pick up the phone, reach out to your family members and your friends who are veterans, tell them you care about them, hear their story, thank them for their service. I think really one person can truly make a difference. It's sort of the ethos that the combat chaplains lived their life with. And we as humans, I think, and Americans, I think we can take that away from it.
And Jeff, have you had one instance, I'm sure you've had many, but one that stands out to you that you felt, boy, I definitely did the work today. I definitely helped somebody through a crisis.
Yeah, I've been on battlefields where stuff was going really bad and people were right next to me and they needed somebody right next to them. And those are the moments where I was just present in the moment that after it was over with, I went back and just thanked God for allowing me to be in that place at that time with those people.
Fantastic. Rich, thanks for your work. And Jeff, thank you so much for your service. We want to tell everyone Fighting Spirit, A Combat Chaplain's Journey is playing now in theaters. Thank you both so much.
Yeah, great to be with you.
Thank you.
We'll be right back with more AM Northwest. Don't go away.